Welcome to Reinventing Capitalism, a space where tech, social entrepreneurship, and impact meet to create the businesses that will lead to a sustainable future. I'm your host, Claudia Thomas. Today, we have Moritz, CEO of Marble Fusion, a company that enables access to abundant, CO2-free, and non-radioactive high-density energy. In this conversation, Moritz explains the difference between fusion and fission energy and discusses the potential of fusion energy as a sustainable and price-competitive alternative to renewables or fossil fuels. With more than 25 years of experience as an entrepreneur, he tells us about the role of government support in such large-scale projects and the importance of building a high-performing and diverse team. Finally, he tells us about his vision for the future of energy, highlighting fusion's potential to improve lives and combat climate change. Join us to discover a new company likely to become the new winner in the energy space. Moritz, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Claudia. It's a pleasure.
I have to admit, when I was preparing for this interview, I was a bit nervous because while fusion is a fascinating topic, I also realized that it's a very complex one within the energy transition realm. So I will assume that it is the unknown among our audience. So let's start by understanding what it is. Can you please explain what is fusion energy and how it compares to fission energy, also known as atomic energy, as if I was a 5-year-old?
So fission is, as you say, what we're currently using in nuclear energy, and it is based on splitting heavy atoms, so uranium or plutonium, which, when you do that, produce neutrons. They, in return, produce electricity. In fusion, you fuse light atoms. So typically a hydrogen with a second atom. There are some distinct differences relating to these two sources of energy. They're both CO2 free. They both rely on a nuclear force to do the job. But fusion energy is even denser. So per mass of fuel, fusion is able to extract 400 times more energy than fission. And then secondly, in fission, you don't have runaway reactions. So splitting heavy atoms typically have these chain reactions that, for example, in Fukushima, we saw that these chain reactions can get out of control. And then you have these runaway reactions that could, be ending in a disaster. In fusion, you don't have chain reactions. You can opt for different fuel choices that don't leave any nuclear waste. Essentially, you're looking to be still CO2 free, but without radioactive waste, and then commercially more competitive, since the process produces even more energy and can be induced more efficiently.
I will say, Moritz, that I have to be a very smart 5-year-old kid to understand.
True. Granted.
But
maybe it's a 10-year-old.
Yeah, maybe it's a 10-year-old. So I've been reading that fusion is known to recreate conditions that are hotter than the sun. Is that the reason why it's considered limitless?
No, limitless is the type of fuel that we're using is available on Earth for, hundreds of thousands of years versus, fossil fuels will essentially come to an end at some point. So the abundance of the fuel going into the process is what makes it limitless.
Thanks for clarifying that. How can fusion energy be good for the planet? So why
it's important for two reasons, Claudia. Number one, we currently see an enormous increase in energy demand, and that is driven by demographics, for example, in India, industrialization, Africa, India, China, and by new applications. For example, artificial intelligence and advanced computing require enormous amounts of energy. It is estimated that artificial intelligence in itself in 6 years, so around the corner, will require in the US as much energy as the entire country of France. So there's an enormous demand that needs to be met, and the current push on renewables, while it is welcome, is not able to meet this demand by a long shot. Over the next 25 years, renewables will come in at about 30% of global energy demand. So we need to fill the gap, which could be done with fission, but it has the mentioned disadvantages that it is simply more expensive. But fusion essentially is the holy grail. There's no CO2, it's abundant, it is competitive, it is baseload energy, and can be built very compact. There are no inherent dangers, even if a plane falls on top of it. There is no danger to the environment or to the outside world. So it really combines what humanity needs in coping with these challenges. And then, and that's my second point, really, if we want to put in a dent into climate change, it needs to be at scale. So small countries like Germany thinking they, can switch to renewables and some electric scooters and that will change climate change is naive. So any solution that really is able to make a difference here needs to be globally scalable. And in that respect, also fusion, I think, has really the potential to fight climate change at scale.
You're definitely building this solution to leave the next generation better conditions in the planet. You are a father of 2 beautiful and smart children. How much of what you do is for them?
A lot. It's been, they told me for the first time they understand why I leave the house. It's more than a job. It's a mission. It has a purpose for the planet, for humanity. And certainly my kids, represent that next generation and the one after. And they are a big part in the motivation to really getting it done and building that first power plant. So yes, they are a big part of this.
It must be very rewarding to feel that your kids truly understand you and they are your biggest fans. Before we get into this power plant, can you explain briefly how does your past experience take you to Marble Fusion?
So I'm not a physicist, and in that respect, I had to learn a lot, and it was a very hard, tough road to understand the fundamentals. And obviously, by now we have an incredible team of scientists and engineers that, are pushing this concept forward. But of course, I have to understand enough to take decisions for this company. I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years now, and I think it seems like everything that I learned there simply was a lesson that I learned to be ready for Marble Fusion. And it's about, how you build a company, how you hire and inspire the greatest minds you can find and find the resources required to be successful. So in that respect, I think my last 25 years have been, very helpful, but also never stop learning. And it's a constant quest for understanding our path better. And then also a personal development in becoming a better leader and then a better leader and then a better leader. So it never stops really.
We'll touch on that a little bit further down the interview. Let's go back to the plant in Colorado. What's the current stage of the plant?
So Colorado is what we call our technology demonstrator. It is showcasing the required technology under power plant compatible conditions. But since it's not enough laser energy installed yet, there is no electricity coming out on the other end.
Okay.
So it represents a key milestone at the end of 2026. So in about 2 years that we're able to, showcase that we've built the technology, that we can operate it, and that it is the showcase for scaling it then to a power plant. So it is key. We've broken ground about 6 weeks ago. Heavy equipment is rolling on site early next year. And in parallel, we're building the laser hardware where we've already advanced greatly. It's the critical path. So we're very happy with progress on that end. And then all the other required components, such as the targets, we're happy that the US Department of Energy funded an important part of the ecosystem through what is called the RISE Hub with other science and industrial partners that will help us to move on the required technology in the required time frame. So it's a key milestone. Together with Siemens Energy, we're on the design of the power plant, which is then to follow until 2032. And then, hopefully the prototype will produce 100 megawatt capacity at some point in 2032. It will be enough to, for example, power the production of synthetic fuels that will allow an Airbus A350 to fly continuously on synthetic fuels, showcasing that also very difficult industries like aircraft can be decarbonized. So it's going to be quite a ride, but also very, very exciting to see how we can first tackle Colorado and then move on the first power plant.
So the end of 2026 will be, you will have finalized the prototype, and then you're expecting to commercialize the energy by the end of 2032. Is that correct?
No. So Colorado is showcasing the technology. The prototype is 2032 and industrialization until 2035.
Okay, so we're looking at 10 years from now.
Yeah, many people call it very ambitious, but otherwise you don't make any progress. So
absolutely.
We want to make sure that we can stick to that timeline.
And how will the price compare to other sources of energy?
We're looking to meet 5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is the forecasted price of solar in favorable locations. That is also the price point that will be needed to move countries like India away from building coal plants. If you want to convince them to move on a different energy source, you have to be competitive. Otherwise, there is no incentive to switch. So you have to set that as an incentive with a competitive price.
So you've compared it to solar energy, for example. That's renewable energy. How will it compare to fossil fuels, for example?
So the problem with renewables, obviously, is that, solar produces only during the day, not at night. Wind only produces when there is wind. So it strongly fluctuates. Sometimes it produces a lot of energy, and sometimes in current fall weather, it's more or less zero because it's cloudy, overcast, and there's no wind. That puts heavy burden on the grid. In Germany alone, we estimate around 350 billion investment into the grids if we continue the current trajectory of the building out of renewables. So in that respect, fusion is a baseload energy, reliable, and we can continue using the current grid structure. The big difference to fossil fuel is, number one, of course, it's CO2 free, but then it's around 400 times denser than fission. So it's a different energy density. It can be built very compact, and it obviously has this scale that is needed to move industrial consumption away from fossil fuels. Again, if we do want to be serious about climate change, it needs to be competitive and it needs to be able to produce at scale.
That's why I was asking, because the scalability part, I was assuming that it could handle, but obviously you need to make it competitive and have a price point similar or cheaper than renewables, because otherwise it would be tough to convince companies to use it.
Absolutely. And I mean, in the US, we already see that, for example, Microsoft struck a power purchase agreement with a fusion company. So we see that industrials, technology companies are already moving in this direction because of the obvious benefits of being CO2-free, reliable baseload at competitive prices in the foreseeable future. And so we believe that in the energy markets of the future, fusion will play a key role.
How many other players are out there, and how are you pacing compared to them?
So there's about 45 fusion companies globally, most of them in the US. There's a few in Europe, Japan. There's very serious efforts in China. All of these endeavors in the quest for a power plant, everyone still has a number of severe challenges to overcome in the physics and then in the engineering. I believe that Marvel Fusion, with its own proprietary approach, has made excellent progress over the last years in demonstrating and validating the key physics drivers. Now Colorado is showcasing the technology, and then I believe in a power plant we can bring it all together. We have partnered with industrials to help us pave the way and then essentially execute. For example, Siemens Energy is the partner for the design and the building of the power plant. I believe that from a point of humanity, you want as many of these companies to succeed, that the market can find the best solution, most reliable, most competitive source. I have a clear goal that Marvel Fusion is one of them, and we're working hard here every day to make that happen. I believe that also in the next 4 to 5 years, it'll be an interesting milestone to see who is really then moving on a commercially viable power plant. There is a famous saying by a Russian scientist: fusion energy will be ready when society needs it. And I believe we've reached that point given the current challenges that humanity has. I think we're close. Many companies have made very good progress. And so I think that, over the next 4 to 5 years, we'll see a tremendous progress in the field.
I can't wait to see where the industry evolves to. The Colorado plant, for example, it's a very big and large scale project. So I assume there's big partnerships involved, including the government, possibly. What have you learned from working for/with the government or these big organizations involved in the process?
Number one, for these types of projects, government involvement, government backing to set the needed foundation is important. One important aspect, for example, is regulation. The US and the UK have already decided on a regulatory framework for fusion. The EU, for the most part, has not. And it is clear that nobody will invest $2 billion in a prototype power plant if the regulation is uncertain. That's a big topic for government involvement. Secondly, funding. We've learned that performance-based funding is key to then also mobilize private capital. We've been very successful in, raising over $300 million until today in these types of public-private partnerships, where public and private capital team up to achieve these hardware-driven milestones that require simply more investment than building a software platform. What we've learned is that government institutions can be very helpful. They are in tendency slower, but I think sometimes very thoughtful. And while it takes longer, it may then still lead to the best result. We have very good engagement of the German and the US government for Marvel Fusion, and we plan to continue this successful collaboration with these governments on our path to then later building a power plant.
Back to something that you mentioned at the start of the conversation: leadership. How are you as a leader?
I'm very hands-off. I hire the best people I can find, people, overachiever. I always hire people that are better than me in what they're doing. I give them my trust. I delegate. 99% of all decisions taken in this company are not taken by me, but it is important, of course, that you give them the needed trust and backing so that they are able to take those decisions. So I lead by example. I work hard. I work a lot. These types of organizations only function with performance. I believe in the trust and integrity of the founding team. It is key that you stick together through the harsh times and are capable of coping with, the challenges along the way. So in a nutshell, I think it is about hiring, inspiring great people from diverse backgrounds, backgrounds, fostering creative thinking from various backgrounds and experiences. We have 70 people and they come from 24 different nationalities. For a hardcore deep tech company, we've been able to attract 40% women. I believe this is the kind of mix that I, as a leader, encourage, where the people have my backing and also my help where they need it, but certainly not micromanaging them, but really giving a lot of freedom to maneuver, creating entrepreneurial space to operate in. That I think is key.
Congratulations on that figure. 40% of the workforce at Marvel Fusion are women. It is common knowledge that there is a huge gender gap in deep tech roles. I read this piece of data that said that 77% of founding teams in the UK of deep tech companies are all male. So what do you think you have done differently to attract such talented women?
So, number one, we believe in diversity, not because it's hip or the flavor of the month, but it does produce better results. It creates better performance, and that's why we believe in it. And that's the first reason that, women that look at Marvel Fusion as a potential employer, we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. We live and breathe this every day. One of my executive board colleagues, Heike, is a woman and she's fantastic. We only also hire women because they're overachievers and performers and not because they're women. And I think that's a key point in making everyone, irrespective of their gender, valued and performing team members. The ability to attract high caliber women, I believe, is really the living this every day and executing on it rather than just carrying a sign around that advertises it. And I believe it shows, right? We've been very successful on that end, and it shows in the performance. Specifically in engineering, we've been able to hire some incredible women, and the results show. And again, here, it's a path that we will continue. It doesn't matter where you come from, which country, education, which God you believe in, or what your favorite dish is to eat. We hire outstanding, brilliant minds. We always prioritize intellectual capacity over experience. So we hire young people that are brilliant over average experience. So there's a few things I believe that we've done right that cater to hiring great women, but it caters to hiring great people overall.
How would your employees describe the culture at Marvel Fusion?
I would say similar, diverse, high-performance culture. We're, a very fast-paced environment. Workload can be heavy. For example, just before an experiment, typically it's long nights preparing. It's very good teamwork, very good, let's say, having each other's back mentality of people. That we don't leave anyone behind, or we also don't leave any work behind. So I think the culture is great. We see that people get together amongst colleagues in their private lives. They meet for lunch or for sports or for other activities. So yeah, I think it's become a company where, people trust each other. They like and enjoy working together. They challenge each other. They want to have the best possible person next to them that they can have, and that fosters a certain performance.
Absolutely. The happier the people and the more connected that they are to your company, the better that they will perform. So for people listening who dream of working for a tech company, revolutionizing the energy transition, what are your hiring plans? Will there be opportunities at Marvel Fusion?
Absolutely. We're in hiring mode. I see Marvel Fusion as kind of, a paradise for engineers. We are moving on our Colorado project. There is several open positions in engineering. There's a few within physics. I think the opportunity is amazing, as you can literally help change the world, work on some incredible engineering challenges with outstanding external industrial partners, suppliers, and our scientific partners. So I always see Marvel Fusion, as paradise. We have the team, we have the resources to really move on great engineering challenges and be successful in doing so. We want to hire young talent. We promote our own before we hire any seniors into the company. We only do that if it's really, really necessary. Otherwise, we bank on hiring and then developing young talents into their dream roles and dream careers, whether it be in an expert role or in a more project management role where you have, for example, for an experiment, you lead a team of a few people. We're very project oriented. We mix the teams up. It's not static. It's very dynamic. I think an incredible opportunity for young, bright engineering minds to join us.
I will put the link to the open roles in the comments, and let's see if we inspire.
I would appreciate that.
Of course.
Yes.
Let's see if we inspire any of our listeners to make the transition to work for an impact company. I have one last question for you. We have a tradition on this podcast where we love to pick up the brains on what you think of the future of the industry. So I want you to imagine you're looking into a crystal ball that shows you the future. What do you think will happen with the sources of energy in the planet, and how will we operate these energy sources in the next 20 years? I normally say 5-10, but considering fusion will be commercialized in the not early than 2035, I will say 20 years this time.
So if fusion can be commercialized competitively, it will become the de facto standard of energy supply to humanity. It will be more reliable, cheaper than any other energy source, and hence it will take on a dominating role in the energy supply to humanity and for this planet. It will also enable use cases, applications that may not have been commercially viable so far. Desalination of water in Africa, industrialization. I think, Africa is at my heart. We need to increase the standard of living. Energy is the key ingredient to make that happen. Industrialize and increase the standard of living. Number one cause of death in Africa today is still diarrhea due to a lack of sanitation, and I think it's humanity's duty to move on this problem. I don't think we are worthy to be here if we're not able to move on these kinds of problems. And so fusion will help leverage its capabilities in being a competitive energy source, in enabling and building some use cases on this planet that have not been possible so far, but they're very much needed for humanity, and to really improve lives, improve civilization, innovation, and make the world a better place.
If we were to continue to operate as we are right now, when would we run out of fossil fuels?
Oh, I believe we will run into much more severe problems before we run out. I don't have the recent numbers in my head. I believe fossil fuels are available for a very, very long time, but I'm convinced that we will run into very severe problems much earlier than that. So I don't think it's about the question whether, how long can we run this place on fossil fuels. The question is more the necessity to do certain things different and to change our behavior with the planet as our home, and then with humanity as a whole. And how can we then, with a different source of energy, influence societies, politicians, individuals, industrials to move on these opportunities to make everyone's life better. If you look at the history of energy, 700,000 years ago, mankind was able to tame the fire, and then in the 19th century we moved on denser forms of energy in the form of coal. We invented the steam turbine. Oil was found, and with that came an incredible increase in life expectancy expectancy. While in medieval ages, people were lucky if they got 40, 45. Today, average age for a male in Germany is 78. So it's double that, and women even live longer to, I think, 83. So it's double the life expectancy of medieval ages, and that comes from the next denser form of energy fueling the needed innovation in various areas: sanitation, healthcare, transport, you name it. There's a lot of things that energy was able to get on the road for humanity in due course of the last maybe 250 years, where we moved on these denser forms of energy.
Thank you, Moritz. I've learned a lot from our conversation, and I can't wait to see what Marvel Fusion achieves in the next 10 years.
Thank you, Claudia. I'm equally excited for this journey. I hope that we can, reach young, bright minds to get excited about our journey, to be in touch with us, and then have, hopefully, the resources that we need to make it happen. That's the goal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.